Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Editor's Notes with me, Cy Williams. I'm talking about cannabis-based news that people are talking about this week. And as we lead into Easter and the long spring weekend before 420, here's a few of the news items I've been paying attention to. In the headlines, a London area cannabis grower rolls out a new Joints for Justice campaign. Fascinating, right? Buying your joints from one particular southwestern Ontario cannabis company will now help Canadians deal with the backlash that often occurs from past criminal convictions for cannabis possession. Now, that still happens quite a bit. Now, under the Joints for Justice campaign, Entourage Health Corporation will direct $1 from each of its pre-roll joints, or $3 a pack, to Cannabis Amnesty, a non-profit that helps people navigate the pardon process, as well as promote related social justice initiatives. Now, many of these people are actually the foundation of what we have today. Now, this is what Entourage Chief Executive George Scorsese said of Canadians who advocated for cannabis to be legalized, some of whom are left with criminal records and almost impossible to find employment. And if we forget that those were truly the individuals that really put this industry on their shoulders and really challenged the regulators, challenged certain stigmas, and were able to drive into this a regulated industry, then I think that all of us who are currently in place right now in Canadian cannabis shouldn't be here as a result of these people. I'm paraphrasing, but Entourage is one of the larger cannabis companies in southwestern Ontario, employing around 300 workers at its Strathroy, Ontario greenhouse, its Almer extraction facility and packaging plant, and its Guelph indoor growing operation. Wow, scattered all over Ontario. Entourage was formerly Weed MD and is also working with Cannabis Amnesty to promote diversity and inclusion in the industry and help cannabis retailers educate consumers about the fallout from the drug war, the drugs criminalization prior to Canada becoming the second country in the world to legalize it in 2018. Enforcement of past cannabis laws disproportionately affected racialized communities, but few people from these communities work in the legal industry today. Sad. This groundbreaking program provides an opportunity for the entire Canadian cannabis industry to spark change through the cannabis they consume. This is what Cannabis Amnesty founder and chief executive Anna Maria Inajor said in a recent statement. Proceeds raised from the campaign will lobby governments for policy changes and allow Cannabis Amnesty to develop long-term programming to help out people who've been affected by cannabis criminalization. Now, let's see what else is going on in the news. A recent report from the consulting company Deloitte called on Canadian cannabis companies to make a greater social contribution. It's now time for its social impact to start matching its economic contribution, the report said of the industry, that has contributed an estimated $43.5 billion to Canada's GDP and sustained 98,000 jobs since 2018. The federal government passed Bill C-93 in August 2019 to waive the waiting period and fees for suspension of records of individuals with pot or cannabis possession convictions. The government estimated 10,000 Canadians, many of them from racialized communities, would be eligible to apply. However, few have pursued the long and complex application procedure, which has been further delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. the Deloitte report said. And as of October 21st, 2021, the Parole Board of Canada has only received 780 applications. 484 record suspensions have been approved. Doesn't seem like a very lot, does it? The report compares to New Jersey, where 362,000 records of people with past cannabis convictions have been expunged, with no waiting period or cost since the state legalized recreational cannabis last year. Well, New Jersey, hats off to you on doing a good job on that. Canada, you should learn something. Now, in other cannabis news, in Canada, BC is still calling for input on the future of cannabis consumption spaces in British Columbia. So they want to hear from you, British Columbians. Now, as we move forward towards this annual 420 celebration held around the world, celebrating the culture and consumption of cannabis, a new Ipsos poll conducted for the Green Organic Dutchman was released, and it has found that a majority of Canadians, 55%, are aware of the 420 celebration, rising to 76% among those aged 18 to 34. Since the legalization of cannabis consumption in 2018, attitudes and behaviors around cannabis in Canada have been evolving. Now that's saying it mildly. Nearly 4 in 10, 36%, say they are more open and positive, that's 22% much more, 13% slightly more, about cannabis use, compared to just 1 in 10, 9%, who are less open and positive, 7% much less, 2% slightly less about it. The remaining 55% say their opinion has not changed, so 55%. 2 in 10, 22% say they consume more cannabis than before legalization, and while just 8% say they consume less cannabis since before legalization. For 7 in 10, 71% of Canadians, there have been no change in their cannabis consumption at all since 2018. Overall, 42% of Canadians claim to have consumed cannabis in the last year for either recreational purposes, non-medical enjoyment, amusement, etc., or medical purposes used to treat disease, disorders, pain, or improve symptoms. Men, 46% of men, are more likely than women, 38% of women, to say they've used cannabis in the last year, as are those aged 18 to 34 and 35 to 54, compared to older Canadians aged 55 plus. Now, 2 in 10 Canadians, that's 20%, say that if they had more educational resources about cannabis, they would be more likely, 6% much more, to consume the product. Conversely, 1 in 11, 9%, says it would probably make them less likely, 7% much less, to consume the product. Now, for 71% of Canadians, more education wouldn't have an impact on their consumption patterns at all. That's 71%, sticking with it. Now, about the study, these are some of the findings of an Ipsos poll conducted between April 12th and 14th, 2022, on behalf of the Green Organic Dutchman. For this survey, a sample of 1,000 Canadians aged 18 and over was interviewed. Weighing in then employed the balance of demographics to ensure that the sample's composition reflected that of an adult population according to the census data, and to provide results intended to approximate the sample universe. The precision of Ipsos online polls is measured using a credibility interval. In this case, the poll is accurate to within plus 3.5 percentage points, 19 times out of 20, had all Canadians aged 18 plus been polled. The credibility interval will be wider among subsets of the population. All sample surveys and polls may be subject to other sources of error, including but not limited to coverage error and measurement error. Ipsos is the world's third largest market research company, present in 90 markets and employing more than 18,000 people. So when they do a research study, they stand behind it. Okay, that's it for me today. I want to thank you for joining me today. Happy Easter weekend, and I'll see you next time.